My tenant demanded I sell my house for her daughter's college, snapping, "It's your duty to fund her future." When I refused her outrageous demand, she waged war, slandering my name and turning the town against me. She thought she'd win, but my legal. Revenge left her speechless. Her words, "It's your duty to fund her future," still echoed in the stunned silence of my own living room. The audacity of it a physical blow. This wasn't some abstract demand from a stranger. This was Emily, the woman I'd shown nothing but kindness and considerable financial leniency to for years, now brazenly dictating the fate of my property, my home, the bedrock of my family's security. As if it were hers to command for her daughter, Lily's astronomically expensive Ivy League ambitions. The sheer, unadulterated entitlement sucked the air from my lungs. This wasn't a desperate plea, it was an ultimatum, delivered with the chilling calm of someone who genuinely believed my life's work was simply a resource for her to tap. For years, I'd played the role of the understanding, almost philanthropic landlord, keeping her rent frozen far below market value, absorbing rising costs, all because her story of being abandoned by her husband shortly after Lily's birth had resonated with the memory of my own parents' lifelong, unfulfilled dream of home ownership. Their quiet desperation had been the very spark that ignited my own relentless ambition to build something solid, something lasting for my wife, Sarah, and our two young children, Tom and Mia. And now Emily, the recipient of that empathy, was attempting to leverage my past compassion as a weapon against the very future I'd sacrificed so much to secure for my own. The property in question wasn't just an anonymous unit in a vast portfolio. It was the first tangible proof of years of scrimped pennies and sleepless nights, a milestone achieved long before Sarah and I had even started our family. It was meant to be a cornerstone of my children's inheritance, a symbol of stability and the rewards of hard work. And Emily knew its value. She knew its prime location, its proximity to the excellent high school Lily had just graduated from with honors, made it an incredibly desirable and therefore valuable piece of real estate. The casual, almost arrogant way she mentioned she'd already had it appraised by a friend in the business, confidently stating the sale would more than cover Lily's entire 4-year ride, with plenty left over for living expenses, made my blood boil. It was as if she were discussing a minor line item transfer in a corporate budget, not the forced liquidation of my history, my family's security blanket. This wasn't just a shocking display of entitlement. It felt like a profound personal betrayal, a grotesque perversion of every decent human instinct that had led me to offer her a helping hand in the first place. The battle for my home, for my children's legacy, for my very sanity had just been declared, and my opponent, with a chilling self-assurance, clearly believed she held all the winning cards. The silence that followed Emily's audacious demand crackled with disbelief. I remember staring at her, searching her face for any sign that this was a bizarre, ill-conceived joke. There was none, just a disturbing, unwavering conviction. "Emily," I finally managed, my voice hoarse. "You cannot be serious. Sell this house? The one I poured my own blood, sweat, and a decade of savings into before I even met my wife? The one that forms a critical part of my children's financial future?" I gestured vaguely around the room, a room I knew better than my own childhood bedroom. "This isn't just an asset I can casually liquidate." She leaned forward, her expression shifting from calm entitlement to something akin to patronizing patience. "Why, John, please," she began, her voice adopting a soft, wheedling tone that immediately set my teeth on edge. "Try to see it from my perspective, from Lily's. This isn't just any university. It's her dream. It's the key that unlocks a future free from the struggles I've endured. You, of all people, should understand ambition. You built all of this," she gestured again, encompassing not just the house, but, I presumed, my entire life, from practically nothing. You know what it means to want something better." Her attempt to equate her daughter's desire for a specific, exorbitantly priced education with my lifelong grind, the sacrifices Sarah and I had made, the careful risks we'd taken, was infuriating. "That's a gross oversimplification, Emily, and frankly, it's insulting," I countered, struggling to keep my temper in check. "My parents dreamed of owning one home, a basic security they never achieved. I worked to ensure my family wouldn't face that same precariousness. This house, the others, they represent years of 18-hour days, of going without, of reinvesting every spare penny. It's not a lottery win I'm hoarding." She actually scoffed then, a small, dismissive sound that grated on my nerves. Oh, please, John, don't be so dramatic. It's one house. You have others. For you, it's a minor inconvenience, a reshuffling of your portfolio. For Lily, it's everything. Her entire life trajectory will be defined by this opportunity. Then, she dropped another casual bombshell that nearly made me physically recoil. And as I said, I already had a friend in real estate run the numbers. The current market value? More than enough. We could even discuss you gifting us the difference after the sale to help with Lily's initial setup. Consider it a philanthropic gesture. Gifting her the difference? My jaw tightened. The level of her delusion was staggering. Emily, I said, my voice dangerously low, you are so far out of line, you can't even see the line anymore. I am not selling my property. I am not gifting you tens, possibly hundreds, of thousands of dollars. The answer is no, unequivocally. This discussion is over. I made to stand, wanting nothing more than to escape the suffocating atmosphere of her unhinged expectations. But she was like a dog with a bone. Her eyes welled up, the picture of maternal anguish. But John, what about Lily? Are you saying her dreams don't matter? That she doesn't deserve this chance simply because her mother isn't wealthy? I thought you were a good man, a kind man, the man who gave us this affordable rent for so long. She was weaponizing my past generosity, twisting it into an obligation for future, far more significant sacrifice. My past kindness does not entitle you to my future assets, Emily, I stated, my patience wearing perilously thin. Lily is a bright girl. I have no doubt she'll succeed wherever she goes. There are countless excellent universities, many of which offer substantial financial aid or are more realistically priced. Have you explored those? Have you considered in-state options? Her face hardened. None of them are the one, she insisted, her voice rising. This is her destiny, and you're standing in the way. Is it because you don't think she's worth it? Or are you just selfish? The accusation hung in the air, ugly and venomous. I looked at this woman, the tenant I'd tried to help, now a stranger consumed by a bizarre, rapacious sense of entitlement. The easy rapport we once shared had curdled into something toxic. This wasn't a misunderstanding I could smooth over with a rational conversation. This was a demand, and it was clear she wasn't going to take no for an answer without a fight. A fight I was increasingly and angrily realizing I would have to give her. My firm no, delivered with what I thought was unequivocal finality, seemed to evaporate into the floral-patterned wallpaper of Emily's living room the moment I stepped out her door. I'd hoped, prayed even, that she would reflect, perhaps consult with a sensible friend, and recognize the sheer lunacy of her demand. Instead, the following days unspooled into a surreal campaign of escalating pressure, a masterclass in emotional blackmail and relentless persuasion that I was utterly unprepared for. It started subtly, a barrage of text messages, each one a carefully crafted guilt trip. Lily cried all night, John. She thinks her dreams are worthless because we're not important enough for people like you to help. Then, I know you said no, but I found an article about philanthropic landlords. Maybe you just need to see it from a different perspective, followed by a link to some obscure blog post. I ignored them, hoping silence would convey my unwavering stance. It only seemed to embolden her. The texts soon morphed into voicemails, her tone shifting from plaintive to insistent, then tinged with a desperate edge that made my skin crawl. She'd call at all hours, leaving long, rambling messages detailing Lily's many virtues, the sacrifices she'd made as a single mother, and how my refusal was a betrayal not just of Lily, but of some unspoken humanitarian code she seemed to believe all property owners were bound by. You have the power to change a life, John. One particularly memorable voicemail throbbed with manufactured pathos. Don't let your attachment to mere bricks and mortar blind you to that. What's more important, really? An empty house appreciating in value, or a brilliant young mind getting the education she deserves? I started screening her calls. That's when she escalated to showing up at my other properties, ambushing me during routine maintenance checks, her eyes wide and pleading, a fresh batch of reasons why I should reconsider. She even cornered my wife, Sarah, outside the grocery store one afternoon, launching into a tearful monologue about Lily's dashed hopes, making Sarah deeply uncomfortable and furious with me for not having handled the situation more definitively. Though how one handles such irrationality was beyond me. Sarah, bless her pragmatic heart, told Emily in no uncertain terms that our finances and investments were a joint decision, And the answer remained a resounding no. Emily, of course, twisted this, later lamenting in a text to me how Sarah was clearly the one pulling the strings, and how it was sad to see a good man so controlled. The first real alarm bell, the one that signaled this, was moving beyond mere misguided desperation into something more sinister, rang when I received a call from Mrs. Henderson, a sweet elderly lady who rented a small duplex from me a few blocks over. "John, dear," she began, her voice trembling slightly, "Emily from your house on Elm Street stopped by. She was quite upset. She told me you were refusing to help her daughter go to college, even though you could easily afford it by selling that property. She said you were, well, she implied you were being rather heartless, especially given her struggles." My blood ran cold. Emily was now actively trying to poison my reputation with my other tenants, with the community. The casual landlord-tenant relationship we'd once shared felt like a distant, naive memory. This was turning into a siege. I tried to explain the situation calmly to Mrs. Henderson, the sheer unreasonableness of Emily's demand, but the seeds of doubt had been sown. Then came the rent. The first of the month arrived, and Emily's usual prompt payment was conspicuously absent. A week passed. Another polite reminder email from me went unanswered. When I finally called her, bracing myself for another barrage of pleas, her tone was shockingly different. It was cold, defiant. "Oh, the rent?" she said, as if it were an amusing afterthought. "Well, John, since you're not willing to be reasonable about helping Lily, perhaps I shouldn't be so reasonable about funding your portfolio either. Consider it leverage. Once you agree to sell the house and secure Lily's future, we can discuss back payments." I was stunned into silence. She was withholding rent, a clear breach of our legally binding agreement, as a tactic to force my hand? "Emily," I said, my voice dangerously low, "you're playing a very risky game. That rent is due. If you don't pay it, I will have no choice but to begin eviction proceedings. Do you understand that?" Her laugh was short, brittle. "Evict a struggling single mother whose only crime is wanting the best for her brilliant daughter, just as that daughter is about to embark on her college journey? Oh, I don't think that would look very good for you, John. Not at all. Especially when everyone finds out why I can't pay." The veiled threat was unmistakable. She wasn't just going to default, she was going to publicly frame me as the villain who pushed her into it. The casual, friendly chats about leaky faucets felt like a lifetime ago. This woman was prepared to burn everything down, including her own security, to get what she wanted. And my property, my peace of mind, and my family's reputation were right in the path of her self-righteous inferno. Emily's threat to tarnish my reputation wasn't idle. It was a declaration of war, and she launched her offensive with alarming speed and viciousness. The next few weeks became a living nightmare, a slow public crucifixion orchestrated by a woman who had somehow convinced herself that my assets were her entitlement. When her tactic of withholding rent didn't yield an immediate capitulation, when I didn't magically produce a for sale sign and a blank check for Lily's tuition, she escalated, taking her grievances public with a vengeance that was terrifying in its scope. She started with the neighbors. I'd hear snippets from other tenants, from acquaintances in the community. Emily, tears streaming, recounting a heavily edited version of our conversations, painting me as a callous, Scrooge-like figure, hoarding wealth while her brilliant daughter's dreams withered on the vine. She'd conveniently omit the subsidized rent I'd provided for years, the fact that the property in question was a significant part of my family's financial security, and the utter insanity of her core demand. She was a struggling single mother, a victim. I was the greedy landlord, the obstacle. It was a simple, powerful narrative, and in a world quick to judge and slow to investigate, it found fertile ground. Then came the social media onslaught. Emily, who I'd always known as moderately tech-savvy, suddenly transformed into a digital martyr. She crafted a long, emotionally charged Facebook post, a masterpiece of manipulative storytelling. It detailed her daughter's academic achievements, her own tireless sacrifices, and then the crushing blow. Her heartless landlord, a man of considerable means, a wild exaggeration of my financial status, was single-handedly preventing Lily from attending her dream university by refusing a simple request to loan her the money by selling one of his many underused properties. She even included a teary-eyed selfie of herself and Lily, captioned with something like, "Praying for a miracle, as some people just don't have a heart. Dreams deferred, just selfish landlord." The post went viral within our local online community groups. Comments poured in, an avalanche of sympathy for Emily, and a torrent of condemnation for me. People who'd known me for years, people I'd shared coffees with, whose kids played with mine, started looking at me differently. That friendly nod from Mr. Abernathy across the street was replaced by a cool, appraising stare. Mrs. Davies from the PTA, usually so chatty, suddenly found her phone immensely interesting whenever I was near. I felt like an outsider in my own town, the whispers and sidelong glances following me like a shroud. Sarah, my usually unflappable wife, was incensed. She tried to intervene, to reason with Emily directly. She called her, hoping for a calm adult conversation. What she got was a tirade. Emily accused Sarah of being jealous of Lily's intellect, of not understanding true maternal sacrifice, and reiterated that we, as a couple, clearly had the means and were simply being cruel and obstructive. You could convince him, Sarah, Emily had shrieked over the phone, according to my wife. If you really cared about that girl's future, you'd make John see sense. It's your moral obligation. The conversation ended with Emily slamming the phone down, leaving Sarah shaken and angrier than I'd ever seen her. But the true tipping point, the moment the unbearable weight of Emily's campaign threatened to crush us, was when it started to affect our children. Tom, my 10-year-old son, came home from school one day with tears in his eyes, his lip trembling. Some older kids had cornered him in the playground, parroting phrases they'd clearly overheard from their parents or seen online. "Your dad's a mean rich guy who won't help poor people," one had sneered. "He's stopping a smart girl from going to college." My daughter Mia, usually so bubbly, became quiet and withdrawn, confessing that a classmate had called her father greedy and evil. That was it. The line had been crossed. Emily's war was no longer just against me. She had dragged my innocent children into her toxic battlefield. The distress in their eyes, the confusion, the undeserved shame, it was a knife to my heart. My silence, my hope that this would somehow blow over, was no longer an option. This woman wasn't just relentless. She was destructive. She was trying to dismantle my life, piece by piece, starting with my reputation and now targeting my family's peace. The quiet, unassuming landlord who just wanted to provide for his family and maybe do a little good along the way was gone. In his place was a father, a husband, ready to fight back with everything he had. It was time to stop playing defense. It was time to call a lawyer. The decision to retaliate, to finally drag Emily's insidious campaign of lies into the harsh, unforgiving light of legal scrutiny, ignited a cold, unyielding fire within me. My children's tears had been the ultimate catalyst. I enlisted Matthew, a lawyer whose reputation for courtroom tenacity was legendary. Our initial consultation inventoried Emily's escalating harassment. The manipulative texts, guilt-laden voicemails, saved screenshots of her inflammatory social media posts, painting me as a monster, plus testimonies from unaffected neighbors and the documented impact of the bullying on my children. Matthew listened, his expression hardening, a predatory glint in his eyes that offered a sliver of combative hope. Our first move, a formal cease and desist letter, demanding Emily retract all defamatory statements and halt harassing communications. The impact was immediate. Her panicked texts flooded my phone. "John, huge misunderstanding. We must talk." I never meant any real harm. My reply via Matthew was chillingly final. "Emily, no misunderstanding. Direct future communication through counsel. Prepare for court." Predictably, Emily's formal response was not an apology, but a rambling diatribe of fresh lies. I'd charged exorbitant rent, a provable lie via our agreement and payment records, exploited her vulnerability, and my legal action was a malicious attempt to silence a courageous truth-telling mother. Matthew was unfazed. "More rope," he'd remarked with a thin smile. The weeks to court were excruciating. Town whispers intensified. Emily now a martyr online, her posts growing more desperate, even launching a pathetic GoFundMe. Some distant relatives, swayed by her theatrics, urged me to give the poor woman a break. Amicably, after she'd accused me of financial abuse and sicked a social media mob on my family. The naivety was staggering. The courtroom crackled with tension. Emily, beside her young lawyer, played the wronged innocent, dabbing her eyes. Her testimony was an Oscar-worthy performance. Tears on cue as she described her relentless struggles, Lily's exceptional brilliance, her simple mother's plea, and my cruel, unyielding refusal. She spoke of my vast property empire and how selling one insignificant house would mean nothing to me but salvation for her daughter. She even twisted a casual comment I'd once made about a repair into proof of my supposed limitless wealth. Then her lawyer called a surprise witness, Ms. Albright, a close family friend. She committed blatant perjury, swearing she'd witnessed me promise Emily I'd sell the Elm Street property for Lily, quoting me saying, "All deserving kids need a chance." I was thunderstruck. Emily wouldn't meet my gaze, focusing on her clasped hands. The audacity was breathtaking. She'd conspired to suborn perjury. Matthew, however, looked almost gleeful. His cross-examination was surgical, dismantling Albright's testimony. When, exactly, did this alleged promise occur, Ms. Albright? The specific date, time, location in the coffee shop? What were you drinking? Other witnesses? Any written proof? A text? Email? Even a note? Albright faltered. Her rehearsed story unraveled into a mess of contradictions and I don't recall statements. She produced nothing. Her credibility and Emily's fabricated promise lay in tatters. Then, our offensive. Matthew systematically obliterated Emily's claims. He presented our original lease, subsidized rent, unchanged for years. Bank statements proved her consistent payments until her demand. Verified receipts from area tenants proved Emily paid significantly less than market rate. The judge's expression grew sterner. Matthew then unleashed her own words. Social media screenshots of defamatory accusations, vitriolic comments from incited followers, and a crystal-clear voicemail recording of Emily threatening to ruin my reputation far and wide. Make sure everyone knows what a monster you are if I didn't sell. A gasp rippled through the courtroom. The final devastating blow was the evidence of my children's bullying, directly linked to Emily's online crusade. Anonymized statements from their school counselors detailed the harassment, the taunts, the tears. Matthew's voice, usually measured, resonated with cold fury as he connected Emily's victim narrative to my children's suffering. He painted a stark picture, not a desperate mother, but a calculated manipulator who knowingly inflicted severe emotional distress on a family to extort an unreasonable demand. When he finished, a heavy, condemning silence filled the room. Emily, once the tearful protagonist, now looked small, exposed, her facade irrevocably shattered. The righteous tsunami of truth was about to crash down upon her. The courtroom buzzed, then fell into a stunned silence as the judge delivered the verdict with unwavering sternness. Emily was found unequivocally guilty of defamation, her meticulously constructed web of lies torn apart by the undeniable weight of truth. The judgment was swift and severe. She was ordered to pay all outstanding rent immediately, substantial damages for the profound harm caused to my reputation and my family's emotional well-being, and, to add insult to injury, all of my considerable legal fees. A restraining order, with no room for ambiguity, was immediately issued, barring her from any further contact, direct or indirect, and prohibiting any further defamatory statements online or otherwise. I watched, a strange sense of detachment washing over me, as the fight visibly drained out of Emily. Her shoulders, once so arrogantly squared, slumped in utter defeat. The mask of wronged innocence she had worn so convincingly throughout the proceedings had shattered, revealing the raw, ugly face of bitter humiliation. Her lawyer, looking ashen-faced, led her away, a broken woman now facing the very real, very harsh consequences of her malicious and calculated campaign. Lily, her daughter, who had been compelled to be present for the verdict, looked pale and shaken, her eyes wide with a dawning, painful understanding of her mother's true nature. Walking out of that courtroom, the oppressive weight of months of public vilification and private stress began to lift from my shoulders. Justice hadn't just been served, it had been delivered with a resounding, satisfying crack of the gavel. My property was secure, my family's name, so cruelly tarnished, was cleared. And the powerful aftertaste lingering in the air? It wasn't just victory. It was the profound, unshakable peace of knowing I had stared into the abyss of deceit, fought for what was unequivocally right, and that truth, in the end, had not only prevailed, but had triumphed spectacularly. The nightmare finally, blessedly, was over.